We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. And you've just crossed over into the trend zone. Dave here with Casey. Are you ready, brother?
You got that right, my friend.
All right. You've just crossed over into the trend zone. And it is Wednesday, November 13th, coming at you from California, Los Angeles, Santa Monica over here on the west side. It is a beautiful, let's see what we got, 66 degrees right now here on the west side, dude. In today's episode, we'll talk about the injury bug that keeps on biting. We will get into our fantasy go backs of the week, Survivor. We will talk about all of the awesome games coming up this week in the NFL. But before, Casey, we get that going, we can't go on a trip into the trend zone without a couple of tasty nugs. What you got?
You got that right, brother. In week 10, there were 10 games within one score. That's 8 points in the fourth quarter. And 8 games were decided by 6 or fewer points, including 4 teams, the Ravens, the Panthers, the Niners, and the Lions, that recorded the game winning points in the final 2 minutes of regulation or in overtime. And so far, there have been 83 games decided by 7 or fewer points, and
Wow.
73 of those games decided by 6 or fewer points this season. Both most such games through 10 weeks in NFL history. Dave, every week, it's crazy.
Dude, those
It's never
nugs
ending.
are enough to blow my mind.
And speaking of nugs, I got some red hair varietal of nugs, Dave. And I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, your favorite team. I know
Yes, yes.
linebacker Leo Chenal blocked a field goal on the final play of regulation in that Chiefs 16-14 comeback win over the Denver Broncos. The Chiefs improved to 9-0 this season and become just the fifth Super Bowl champion to win its first 9 games. The 2011 Packers began 13-0. The 1998 Denver Broncos 13-0 as well.
Wow.
2015 Patriots 10-0, and the 1990 San Francisco 49ers also began 10-0. And Dave, the Chiefs got a tough one this week. We're going to get to that in a little bit. So if they get to 10-0, they will have earned it, my friend.
Yes, they will. They certainly have luck on their side, right? With the way things are. Obviously, they create their own luck,
Mm-hmm.
don't they?
They do.
All right, Casey. Trend Zone now available for subscription. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, Amazon Music as well. It's all over the place, Casey. Go ahead and seek it out. Subscribe and download and listen to the Trend Zone by Football Dudes. You got that right. Oh yeah. Casey,
Hell yeah.
let's move on to the top trending stories. Another axe has come down in the NFL.
Yeah, baby. The Bears fire Shane Waldron. He was the offensive coordinator there. They promote Thomas Brown to OC. Waldron out, dude, after just 9 games
Wow.
as the Bears offensive coordinator. I mentioned they replaced him with Brown. He had previously had that title of offensive passing game coordinator. Now he's going to take over the play calling duties. And after the duty that they've been putting on the field, the Bears brass had having enough. We'll see how this season ends. You cannot get in there and mess with Caleb, the superstar's mind. His play has regressed. And if they don't get this sorted out, Eberflus might be falling off of that coaching carousel as well. It's just not been good. I think it's been 24, 25 straight drives without a touchdown. Not
Wow.
good.
Yeah,
Hibernation, that
Floozy's in
offense.
trouble. Floozy's in trouble over there. But Thomas Brown did have a cup of coffee with Sean McVay. And
Oh,
so, there you have it.
superstar.
There
Yeah.
you have it.
He's got to
It
be in
was,
the room with that guy.
yeah, he was in that Ram staff of a lot of guys that have ascended and succeeded. We'll see how it works out here. Hopefully, they can get things turned around there for Bear fan.
Yep.
All right, Casey. Some of these guys in the NFL keep getting hurt, and then once in a while, it's just a new guy gets hurt. There's a handful of new guys this week getting banged up.
Yeah, luckily nothing too major happened
Yeah.
this week. One of the best weeks for injuries. Sam Laporta, shoulder. They hope that he's going to go this weekend. Dalton Kincaid, another tight end. Not sure if he's going to play in this huge game coming up Sunday that I alluded to earlier. So they would like to have him available for that game. They're already going to be out without Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
So it's getting a little thin for pass catchers for Josh Allen. They're going to need him. Chuba Hubbard, he got a little banged up over in
Chubby.
Germany. I think they have the bye this week, so that ought to be okay. Miles Sanders banged up in Germany. What is in the schnitzel over there? All these injuries for the Panthers. Luckily, they're on a bye. Aaron Jones got a little banged up. We saw him leave on the cart in that game, but then came back and he
Yeah,
made an appearance. So
good for him.
hopefully maybe Cam Akers can split up that duty if you're looking for some fantasy action there. Tank Bigsby got a little banged up. But overall, no season-ending injuries last week, and that is a good thing, especially how brutal it's been so far this season.
No doubt about it. It always seems like more than the previous season, but
Yeah,
here we are. Luckily, like you said, these ones aren't season ending, so
yeah.
that's a blessing for this week. Okay, Casey, moving on to the Total Fantasy Domination. What's your quarterback?
Oh, dude, this guy is making multiple stays here. We're talking about Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, baby, of
Yeah.
the Cincinnati Bengals and those Cookie Monsters. 428 pass yards,
Wow.
4 passing touchdowns, added in 6 rushing yards. Joey Shiesty.
Yeah, and he was the guy last week too, right? With
Yeah.
5 TDs. Holy
Yeah, only
mackerel!
9 TDs over his last 2 weeks. No big deal.
Ooh-wee. All right, how about running back Bijan Robinson on the bolt action in the Atlanta Falcons? There, 116 rushing yards, 2 TDs, and 28 receiving yards.
Yeah, and this stupid team seems to have someone every week. No, I'm not talking about Cincinnati Bengals. I'm talking about the Purple Sabbath. Jamar Chase, he is on the case, baby. 264 receiving yards,
Woo.
3 receiving touchdowns. Dave, I think last week you were telling me how crappy that Baltimore pass defense was, and you were right, my friend.
Yeah, the game played out similar to how I thought it would. I was almost going to take the Bengals, but I was like, no. I mean, but they were able to achieve what I thought they could.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews is our tight end this week. He is on my lightning strikes. He's finally arriving here. 68 yards and a receiving touchdown for Andrews of the Ravens for the
Just in
fantasy.
time, Dave. You going to be able to turn it around, get into
Yeah,
the
well, with
playoffs at
2 wins,
7-7?
two
It could
wins. No.
happen. It could happen, baby.
All right, Casey, do you have any fantasy go backs for the week where we go back in time and we discuss how possibly a different decision would have altered our fantasy reality? What do you got?
Dave, I'm a little bit embarrassed to mention this in front of the world on our podcast
Yeah.
because I am a football dude. This is the first time it's ever happened to me. My outside life has been a little bit busy. So when week 10 rolled around, I did not know that I had Nick Chubb and Kenneth Walker III on a bye. I needed a running back spot there. Thursday night, I went ahead and got Khalil Herbert.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought
Good
the
idea.
Bengals, high scoring game. He got 1 touch, he fumbled, and then he never made it back onto the field again. I was like, does Chase Brown not get tired? Gave me a big fat 0 out of the running back on Thursday. So I knew that I was cooked. I went down. This is even more embarrassing than not having a full roster. I went down to the Snivellers. And the
Ooh.
Snivellers are actually in playoff contention this year. So we know it's a bizarre world in our fantasy world.
Yes. There was nothing I could do, Casey, as much as I would like to. So I did have some adjustments that I could have made, putting Juwan Jennings and Quentin Johnston in at receiver instead of uh, Neighbors and Addison, but it just doesn't even make sense. My fantasy season is just an absolute aberration over here. It wouldn't have given me enough points anyways. Lost by 20 points, 22 points there. So um, utter crap. 2 and
You
8. So
oh yeah, oh, I thought you still had 7. So yeah, you might be cooked at 2 and 8. But Dave, you
yeah,
better leave Quentin on your bench this week so to make sure he gets those
that's right.
points from your bench against those Bengals, and we will get
That's
into that in just a little bit.
woo. Yeah, a lot going on there. All right, Casey. Moving on to Survivor Three Strikes. Lay it on us. I've been out since week 5. Are you still hanging in there?
I am. I went with the Vikings, and it wasn't looking great. They were down to the Jags late in that game, but Jags gonna jag. They went ahead and lost that lead. They jagged off right out of there, and I survived with my Vikings, Dave. But if you weren't on the Vikings, our Los Angeles Chargers were the most popular correct pick at almost 32%. So if you had the Chargers, you were smart to use them.
Go Chargers, go! How
Show me your
about
lightning
last
bolt.
week's most popular incorrect pick?
That would be those Chicago Bears there over the New England Patriots, less than 11%. but that is still 11% too much. So sorry. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Can't even count on the Patriots to lose right. All right, looking ahead, Casey, a couple of decent opportunities if you've still got some of these teams.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking Detroit over Jacksonville. No T-Law in that game. The Philadelphia Eagles over the Durs. I might
Ooh.
hold off on that, but 14% of the nation likes it. And the Minnesota Vikings over those Titans, almost 12% of the nation.
Yeah, 40.5% on Detroit over Jacksonville. If you're so fortunate to have Detroit, otherwise you want to maybe pick. Obviously, it starts to get sticky
That's
in
right.
these once you've used up all these teams. All right, Casey, off of this fantasy silliness, all the garbage, so frustrating. Move on to the real action where the games are real. Everything counts. We've got four teams on a bye: Cardinals, Panthers, Giants, and Buccaneers as we head into week 11 NFL action.
What did you say?
Yes, sir. We are heading right into NFL week 11.
Week 11?
Yes, sir. Week 11. Correct.
It's slipping away.
Yes, it is.
Dave, week
Dude,
11, bro.
yeah, we're 24 hours away from this week getting underway on Thursday night football. Casey, how does it get started this week?
Dave, at least I'm happy when one of these teams is guaranteed to lose unless it goes in overtime and ends in a tie. But if that doesn't happen, it's the Washington Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles are 3-point favorites at home. Talk about these Durs.
All
Rah.
right, how about those Commanders? They had won three in a row, and they are 7-3 now after dropping last week's game to the Steelers. It was a good game, a close one there. Commanders have run the ball well all season. They were the third-ranked running team going into that. But without Bijan Robinson, or excuse me, Brian Robinson, my mistake, of course, a fantasy guy of mine, last week they struggled and only gained 60 yards on the ground, although Eckler did actually score twice in the game. He's got a nose for the end zone there. Jaden Daniels, just 17 of 34, 202, no picks, no touchdowns even, so 50% completion rate. Definitely not his greatest game with a PR of 68.5 in that game, but they were right there in it. McLaurin, 5 for 113. Just not enough, though, in this game. Philadelphia's defense heading into this week is a pretty good match for this Washington offense. Go ahead and talk about Philly.
Yeah, Dave, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they're probably not going to hold Daniels to just 66 yards passing, to which they did Cooper Rush at Trey Lance last week. I'm just going to, put that out there. I don't see that happening.
Right.
And they're probably not going to hold these Eagles under 100 yards rushing like they did the Cowboys there. But let's talk about these Eagles starting to play some pretty damn good football. When A.J. Brown is healthy on that team, it's been different. He had 5 grabs,
Big time.
109 yards last week. Saquon Barkley, only 66 yards. Cowboys defense finally do something good. I'm not going to seg into what it should be about the Cowboys. I am talking about the Eagles here, but it was
Focus.
Jalen Hurts, dude, 7 rushes, 56 yards, including 2 touchdowns. That's what really killed them.
That's
And
big
then
time.
very efficient in passing, 14 to 20, 202 yards, and 2 touchdowns there. So the Eagles, Saquon's taking this team to a whole nother level. And now, when him and Jalen get the run thing going, it is pretty impressive. Dallas Goedert back and looking healthy. He had a touchdown against the Cowboys too. So they don't need to get a ton out of the defense when the offense plays like it does, but they are going to have to contain Daniels, keep him in the pocket. Not sure if Robinson's going or not, but this is a huge game. If the Durs get this, these guys will play twice, but that would do a lot for their confidence moving into the later part of this season. So getting this on Thursday night is a pretty sweet game.
Yeah, and it is going to be a battle here. This Philadelphia defense is second in yards, tied for fifth in points at under 18 points a game. They're third versus the pass, fifth versus run. So Philly's defense has really shaped up to be one of the better units in the NFL. Washington defensively on their side, they're pretty good, but they're a little bit weaker against the run. So we'll see how that impacts what they're able to do to try and contain Hurts, as you mentioned, and of course Saquon Barkley, who's really taken off.
Yeah, and a lot of these wins on that Washington schedule, I guess Cincinnati was early on. That's kind of the big win, but when they hit Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they obviously lost those games. So we'll see what happens as the
But
competition gets
played
a little
well in
stiffer.
them.
True,
Played well.
but
You're supposed to beat the bad teams and compete with the good teams and sneak a couple out, right?
yeah,
They're
this will
where
be
they're
huge. This will be a
Yeah,
huge game
it'll
for
be a
them.
big game, no question about it. Okay, let's move it on to the early slot of Sunday morning here. It'll be the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Detroit Lions, and the Lions with a monster -13 going into this one there.
And it actually might be more than that there, dude, when this game actually goes. It's going to be Mac Jones for the Jags. We mentioned Bigsby's a little banged up there. So who knows if Etienne and Bigsby can get the run game going against those Lions. And if they don't get some points early, then they're not going to be able to run at all. And that's going to be bad news for Mac
Oof.
Jones. So Darius Smith will probably play in this game. He sat out the Sunday nighter,
Yeah,
but he was very active on the sideline talking to the guys. Um, and before last week, Jared Goff was my league MVP. And even though he had the 5 interceptions on Sunday night, I'm not taking him
unbelievable.
out of that category because he's still playing great football. Obviously, in that game, he didn't. But Dave, can you actually go on the road, throw 5 interceptions, and still win a football game? Yeah, if you're the Detroit Rock City Lions, you can because everybody picked him up. Gibbs and Montgomery doing a hell of a job.
Yep.
And Amon Ra is still the go-to guy there. I expect Goff to bounce back in a big way, and I expect one of these kitty cat teams, the Jags, to have a long nap on Sunday.
Are you going to switch that the heading under there, Casey? Where is it there?
To
There
that,
you go.
yeah,
13. Big number.
13. My
Big,
goodness.
big number in the NFL.
Getting all choked up about it, Dave. All right, let me go ahead and move on, and I'm going to switch ahead of time now. There we go. It's the Los Angeles Rams at the New England Patriots. And
Yes.
the Rams are 5.5-point favorites.
Well said, sir. All right,
Thank you.
let's talk Rams. Our Los Angeles Rams had won 3 in a row to save their season, really, because there was trade talk about moving Cup and stuff like even Stafford maybe was hinted at. But yeah, they got those 3 straight wins. That saved their seasons. That shut that trade talk out of there, man. And last week game, though, Monday Night Football, they dropped that one. It was a close one there. Their record now sitting at 4-5. 2 games back of that final wild card spot, but totally still alive actually in the division as well. Rams committed just too many unforced penalties in that game. I don't know if you remember, just penalties that were just really setting them back. In fact, the most egregious one was one that negated a field goal. It sent them back 5 yards, and then they missed that field goal.
Mhm.
Late in the game, they're down by 11, I believe it was, when they should have been down by 8. And it just changed the whole end game there. But Stafford didn't play his best game last week, and the Rams' running game was also not very good. Rams settled for 5 field goals and no TDs, and not in the NFL, ladies and
Nope.
gentlemen. Does that, usually that one's just not enough. You got to score TDs when you can, at least a handful of them there, right? They got to avoid mistakes, stupid mistakes, shooting themselves in the foot. Got to score TDs, not field goals, and they should be okay in this game. Talking about these Patriots, Casey, they've won 2 of the last 3, which is pretty
Yeah.
surprising from where they were. Their record now sitting at 3-7. Last week it was a surprise win, though. I think even so against the Bears, and the way they really dominated the game,
Mhm.
just giving up. It was 19-3, I believe. So they sacked Caleb Williams 9 times in that game.
Ugh.
So if you can get the quarterback on the ground 9 times. Those are drive killers right there. They're going to need to get after Stafford in that way, and if they can, they've got a shot to beat this Rams team. Otherwise, the Rams have, I think, they'll clean up those mistakes and maybe have too much firepower for the Patriots offense to keep up with.
And so far, it looks like Drake May is going to be the dude. He had some real nice plays in that Bears game, and he
Mhm.
looks like he's continuing to go in the right direction there. So I'll be interested to see how he plays against a little better competition. Like you mentioned, a couple wins there. I think the over on the Patriots for this year was 4.5. So betters beware. It's creeping up on that.
Yeah, nervous time, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
long time left in the season for those folks to squirm. All right, moving along, it is the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears there, and the Pack on the road are favored by 6 against their division rival.
Yeah, the Pack lose a, a brutal game to the Lions and then go on a bye week to think about. The only problem holding the Pack back is Jordan Love still throwing that crazy pick six out of there. Sometimes you just got to take the sack and go down,
Yeah.
eliminate a couple mistakes there. They were overwhelmed by those Lions. They'll get another chance at them later on in the season, but they're seventh in passing, they're third in rushing, and third in total yards per game. So when Love keeps it clean, they win most of their games. They should not have any trouble against these Bears. Aaron Rodgers, wrote over ownership of the Bears to Jordan Love there. So he's got that deed
Right.
right in his pocket. The Bears fire the OC to try to jumpstart that offense, but I don't see it getting started against this Green Bay defense that has been very opportunistic. I think 19 turnovers on the year. So if they take care of the ball, they'll get some turnovers off of Caleb and the boys, and hopefully he just doesn't get sacked 9 times again. That is so brutal. But
Yeah.
the Packer needs to beat these Bears and just move on.
Did Rogers also give Love the discount double check belt?
I'm not sure about that, but he did give him a little bag of ayahuasca. So
Oh,
win some, you lose some, right? Come
that should
on.
be pretty good there. All right.
All right, Dave, let's talk about one of your other favorite teams, the Las Vegas Raiders. They are at the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins are 7.5-point favorites.
Yeah, how about these Raiders here, Casey? 2-7 coming off their bye, but that didn't break their 5-game losing streak that they're currently on.
Ugh.
They were most recently beat a couple weeks back by Cincinnati, pounded down there, resulting in the firing of 3 offensive coaches, including their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. He's being replaced by Scott Turner, son of the Norvelus one, right? Who is also going to be joining the coaching staff there as a consultant. So Norv Turner coming out of the woodworks there. We'll see how all of that works out for the Raiders. Raiders offense is 32nd in the league in rushing, 29th in yards overall. So they need some kind of infusion of thoughts on the offensive side of the ball. Staying with Minshew apparently at the quarterback position. Dolphins on the other side got Tua back 2 weeks ago. After he missed 5 games and in 6 weeks of time. And, it was the concussion, obviously, that scared every football fan
Mm-hmm.
and every mother of every kid that plays the sport, right? They lost 4 of 5 games when he wasn't there. This team is obviously different when Tua is back. They did lose their first game back versus Buffalo, but they were able to get it going to sort of save the season last week versus the Rams. They're now 3-6, so not a lot of room for error for this team, making this a really, really important game for them. It is, the Raiders, obviously on their side, just maybe exactly what this Dolphins team needs to sort of get things back in rhythm with Tua there. We'll see if the coaching change makes a difference for the Raiders or if Tua and company can really keep their playoff hopes alive. This is one they have to win, I think, if they want to make the playoffs.
Absolutely. And 2 weeks ago, they played well enough to beat the Bills, came up just a little bit short. So at least they're starting to
Yeah.
play good football. Tua
Mm-hmm.
spreading that ball around. OBJ had some big catches in that game against the Rams. Waddle and getting Tyreek in there and A-Chain is absolutely awesome. So
A
maybe
lot of exciting pieces there for the Dolphins, no
yeah,
question.
and that defense played maybe its best game of the season against those Rams. You mentioned they shut down Kyron Williams. That's not been easy to do. So maybe it is starting to come together for the Dolphins. It's clearly a different team with Tua back there. So, but it starts with beating a hapless Raider team.
All right, up next, it is the Cleveland Browns at the New Orleans Saints. Saints are favored by 1 in this one. Close game.
Yeah, dude. And these Saints are undefeated with Darren Rizzi as the head coach. They actually got a huge win last week against those Hotlanta Falcons. MVS with 2 huge touchdowns. And that's
Wow,
kind of what we saw the first couple of weeks from the Saints team. Derek Carr just lobbing it downfield,
slinging it.
getting the huge play. So hopefully there's more of that to come. this weekend there too. And Alvin Kamara is quietly putting together a really nice season. 55 yards rushing last week, 54 yards receiving. So the more that guy goes, the more that this offense does. And then Cleveland, before the bye, 2 weeks before that, they beat the Ravens. The week after that, throw 5 picks or something to get sacked 6 times against your against our Chargers. Sorry. So
Yeah, come on
we're
board.
not quite sure who's going to show up. Maybe there's a revenge factor from Jameis back in the day from the time he spent on the Saints. But the Saints they're not dead yet,
Yeah.
but it's pretty damn close. You lose to the Browns and you will be. So I like what I saw out of them last week. You win a divisional game. Let's stack it with a win against the Browns, and then who knows what can happen. But it's tough when you already have that 7th loss of the season.
Right. I was about to say both these teams sitting with 7 losses. I think we can safely feel like that getting that 8th loss is
It's a
kind of
wrap.
the deal
Yeah.
there. So and obviously no margin for error. Almost have to run the table as it is, right?
Dave, I have a sweet game for you, my
Yeah.
friend. Very sweet.
Yeah.
How about the Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers? And Lamar and the Ravens are 3.5-point favorites on the road. Wow.
Wow. Yeah. And this, obviously the Steelers are leading the division there, but it's, by a hair. But I'm talking Ravens here, dude. 7-3 Ravens coming off a huge divisional win over Bengals by 1 point. And that had the Bengals going for 2 at the end there. Could have got the win. I like the gamble, but the Ravens defense held for the win. The Ravens defense, man, they're number 1 against the run. Yay. They're 32nd versus the pass. And last week that was evident as they got shredded by Burrow and company there, who would shred anybody. But this defense, man, they are really struggling in pass in coverage there. Not very good overall, but 428 yards and 4 touchdowns to Burrow last week. That is a tough one there to swallow if you're a Ravens fan, but they got the win. On the offense, the Ravens are awesome. Number 1 in total yards, rushing, and points at 31.8 and 3rd in passing. So just about as maxed out in the offensive stat category as you can be. Lamar is on his way. Obviously, I mean, unless you're just tired of him winning MVPs, he's on his way to get this one. I know you like the Detroit guy, and I don't disagree with you. But last week, Lamar threw for 290, 4 touchdowns, passer rating of 141.4, hit 9 different receivers. King Henry wasn't even clicking really, held in check for 68 yards and just 1 touchdown. But on the season, Henry leads the league with both 1,120 yards and 12 rushing TDs. So that's their MO. Run the ball like crazy, have Lamar be Lamar, and then hand it to King Henry a lot, right? He averages 6.1 yards a carry. So I don't have to do too much exotic math to figure that if you hand it off to him twice in a row, it usually moves the chains. They face a Pittsburgh defense, though, that is really, really good.
Yeah, dude, and know what else is really, really good is that Pittsburgh offense is starting to come into it, dude. They are letting Russ cook, and last week,
Yep.
3 touchdowns against those Washington Commanders, including the go-ahead score late to give the Steelers that victory there. And Justin Fields was winning games, but just barely. And now I know that they just barely won last week, but the way that they're winning now with Russ back there has
It's a
a
different.
whole nother
It's all
dynamic,
opened
dude.
up. The offense is opened up.
Yeah, and
There's chapters of the whole offensive playbook that are now being explored.
especially George Pickens, dude, 5 for 91 and a touchdown last week. They get Mike Williams in for less than a week, and he already blew past what he did on the Jets. And that one that Russ dropped in, it was such a pretty pass, but that was not an easy catch. It was
He
over
had to
just,
adjust for it.
and he
Yeah.
just caught it. And so now you got the size of those guys on the outside there. And you know my favorite tight end in the league, Patrick, John Henry, Sarsipius, Fryermuth. Russ is spreading the ball around, letting those guys cook. And the 1-2 punch with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris is a very sweet combination there. And now we're starting to get a little bit of Cordero Patterson into that mix too. But that Pittsburgh defense, man, Watt is going to be a monster. Can they contain Lamar? Can they shut down that run game of the Ravens? This is going to be a brutal game with everything on the line. Completely stoked to see this thing. And I think both of these teams are headed to the postseason there, but one
Yeah.
of them would love to at least get one home game, and
Yeah,
the
no
winner of this
question
is
about
going
it.
to
And
set themselves up
this
for it.
defense, this defense for the Stillers here, man, second in points given up at just 16.2 points a game. Um, they aren't a great pass defense, but they are number 4 against the run, which is going to bode for them well this week as long as they can kind of contain what Lamar brings in the run game.
Mhm. Yeah, they
It'll
would
be
much
interesting.
rather have Lamar throw it, as great as he's been,
Yeah,
than run it. So, and if they're throwing the ball a lot, that means that Derrick Henry ain't running the ball. So
that's
that is
right.
a good thing if you're going up against them. All right, Dave. Up next, we have the Minnesota Vikings at the Tennessee Titans, and the Vikings are 6.5 point favorites on the road.
Yes, Casey. And let's talk these Vikings, dude. I mean, they've struggled a little bit lately with Sam Darnold kind of banged up a bit there. Um, and he's got to get going. Aaron Jones also. So we saw him last week banged up as well. So, like you mentioned earlier, if they can get Cam Akers a little bit further involved in there, he's doing a great job getting the ball around his weapons with Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Naylor. Also has really elevated the game. But getting back Hawkinson has given them another dimension that they didn't have before. But we'll see if they can take care of business this week. A Titans team that has a very good defense, actually. They were number 1 in yards given up heading into last week's Charger game. I'm not sure where they are on that list right now, but the Titans defensively are a lot better than you would think. They're not as good on points given up because they faced a lot of short fields due to the turnover happy Will Levis. When Levis is playing well, though, he flashes NFL quarterback,
Yeah.
big arm and excitement, and he can move well. He's a big, strong guy, but he does tend to still come up with the mistakes. Last week, towards the the latter portion of the game, he was sacked numerous times. So they got to protect him better back there, and also Tony Pollard. When they're winning,
Mm-hmm.
Tony Pollard is really at the 100-yard plus mark. And when they're not winning, it's when they're relying on the quarterback throwing the ball. Calvin Ridley has been exceptional there. 2 touchdowns last week for Ridley, one on the first drive and one on the last drive in garbage time. They need to get Calvin Ridley more consistently involved throughout the game, but Pollard is a big key here. Have to be able to run the ball against this Vikings defense.
Yeah, and we haven't really seen Tajay Spears have much of an impact this year. I know he's been fighting
He
through
just
some
got
injury.
back from injury.
They're
He
expecting both of
right.
those guys to do something. So far, it's been TP.
All right, Case, up next. Let's see. Oops, excuse me. Oh, you've got this next one. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the Indianapolis Colts at the New York Jets, and the Jets are 3 point favorites.
Who are the odds makers coming up with this stuff? All right, Colts first. 4-6 Colts. Since benching Richardson indefinitely, they lost both games, losing to the Vikings and then last week to the Bills. Now Flacco is backo to being backup, right? And Anthony Richardson will start in this game and apparently start moving forward. So maybe there were some behind closed doors conversations happening there, and they decided it was time to just get the kid going again.
Maybe it was the 4 Flacco interceptions
That
last week,
wasn't
4 or 5.
that did not help
Yeah.
Flacco's case for another opportunity to show what he could do. Yeah, maybe the magic has sort of run out for Flacco. We'll see. They are the Colts just 2 games back in the division and 1 game out of that last wild card spot. So they're hoping for an infusion of some excitement here with Richardson and him being able to avoid injury and the mistakes that he's been plagued with. But hoping to get Michael Pittman back. He missed last week. Not sure against maybe DeForest Buckner, who's been plagued by injury and has missed practice time, as well as a handful of other defensive players this week. We'll see if they have their full arsenal of players on both sides of the football that could really help this Colts team. The Jets on the other side are 3-7, and they have, although they did win 2 weeks ago, they've lost 6 of the last 7, and they got blowed out They got debacled last week against the Cardinals. Rodgers threw for just 151 yards, no touchdowns, a passer rating of 72. And believe me, he was my fantasy quarterback. He got like a 6 or something like that. Hall and Allen, the running backs, ran for just 79 yards last week. So nothing doing. The Jets are 30th in running the football. You would think with those two backs that they'd be at least middling. They are one
Yeah.
of the worst rushing teams on defense. The Jets are great at defending the pass, but not very good against the run. So neither team can afford to lose this game. With 6 losses for the Colts, 7 losses for the Jets, nobody can take a loss here. It's a desperate game for both of these teams.
Yeah, and since Salah's been canned in Jetsville, the defense has gone down
Yeah,
asleep, steep hill there, and we saw Rodgers just not able to avoid the pressure like he has in years past. We were talking about
doesn't
that
seem
with
to be.
despondent Jet fan last week. Is just like
Yeah,
can't get out of the pocket. He's getting moshed back there. So
totally.
he says he wants to come back next year. So we'll see. But yeah, I think they are on the outside looking in, and that window's getting foggier on the inside, getting tougher to look into that playoff picture, dude.
Yeah, Rodgers is just taking a pummeling, it seems
Mhm.
like nowadays. All right, moving on to the late slide. It's the Atlanta Falcons at the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos are favored by 1.5 in this one. It's a good
Yeah,
game.
both of these teams coming off of disappointing losses last week. The Falcons dropping one in their division to those Saints, but it's still Cousins is having a really nice season, 17 touchdowns, averaging over 260-yard games. But we're starting to see Bijan Robinson really emerge, just under 5 yards a carry, and super active in the passing game as well. There, the Falcons, were playing pretty good football. They're always in close games, dude, every week. Tampa 31-26, Dallas 27-21, New Orleans 2017. They got to figure a way to make some distance and actually beat some teams. I don't think that's going to happen this week because that Denver Broncos defense is pretty good. I'm sure you're going
Yep.
to talk about that, but which one of these teams can bounce back from that brutal loss they suffered in week 10? It's going to be tough. More veteran leadership on this Falcons team, but they're going to be on the road, and it's probably going to be a little cold there at Mile High. So I don't know if the Falcons can, get that dirty bird action going in the cold weather.
Yeah, it is tough to play in the Mile High, atmosphere as well. Casey, the Broncos though sitting at 5-5, they've lost 2 straight, and a blowout. One was a blowout to the Ravens 2 weeks ago, and then a close one to the Chiefs last week that the Broncos actually should have won, if not for a blocked chip shot field goal in the final seconds. There, very very Chief-like indeed. But let's go back to the Broncos. Bo Nix continues to play well for a rookie, right? 22 of 30, 215, 2 touchdowns, no picks last week. Pass rating 115, hitting 8 different receivers in the process. But here's the deal: the Broncos' passing game is just 28th in the league right now. So even though it looks, we see the development and the excitement that is Bo Nix as a rookie quarterback. It's not resulting overall in a great passing game. Rushing, they're 20th, and overall just 25th in yards per game offensively. So the offense isn't getting it done. They are 22nd in the league scoring at 19.7. So they're not putting a ton of points on the board. You mentioned it, though. This Denver defense is legit, dude. They
Mhm.
are 5th in yards giving up, 10th versus the pass, 7th versus the run, and 4th in points given up. So really, really strong defense. They give up under 18 points a game. They're going to need that defense to play that style that well to
Yeah.
slow down this Atlanta offense and give their offense a chance to sort of compete.
Yeah, and if you're out there, I don't know. He's not available in our league, of course, because no one is. But Audric Estime, baby, if you're in a league that he's on that free agent wire, you jump up and snag him right away. Okay,
Former Domer, I
there
love
you
that
go.
guy. I
All
used to
right,
love that guy.
you used to. Now he's dead to you,
Dead
which
to me
I
now.
fully understand. All right, dude. NFC West battle, dude. The Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers, and the 49ers are 6.5-point favorites at home.
Yep. And how about these Seahawks, man, coming off their bye last week? But before that, it was a home loss to the Rams. That was their second straight loss to drop them to 4-5. Um, and that's last place in the division. However, they're just a game and a half out of first place in the division. So, in the loss to the Rams, though, looking at that game in and of itself, Smith threw 3 interceptions, and
Costly.
two of them came um, on plays that were inside the 10-yard line of the Rams. So one of them returned 103 yards
Oh.
back the other way for a touchdown that gave the Rams the lead really late in the game there, right? So bone crushing, soul sucking interceptions there. Geno Smith was able to rally him up and get the touchdown to put it into overtime, which is great news, but they eventually lost the game, of course. Smith and Jigba had a huge breakout game. 7 catches, 180 yards, and 2 TDs there. They're hoping to get Metcalf back. He missed last week, actually the last 2 weeks. And on the season, Geno leads the league in passing yards per game at almost 285 yards a game. But here's the bad side. Just 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions.
Ugh.
That's nowhere near good enough in modern NFL for a quarterback. And the team is just 27th rushing the ball. So they're not helping them there with the Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet combo there. Just one-dimensional for this Seahawks team. Defense average at best under Mike McDonald.
You don't know me,
That's
but
right.
I'm your new coach. Well, let's talk about these Niners, Dave. As bad as it's been, as many injuries as they've had, as gnarly of a season it's been, they find themselves just a half game back with the Cardinals on a bye. If they can figure out how to win this game, they're
Yep.
going to be tied for first place, technically behind the Cardinals because the Cardinals beat them once already, though. But that's not a bad spot to be in. What I'm not liking out of this Niners team is the lack of defense. They've been locked down for all these years. Right now, they're giving up over 300 yards a game.
Wow.
They giving up a bunch of rushing yards per game, and they're not getting back to the quarterback. Just 22 sacks on the season so far. So you used to be able to count on this, and I guess the most jarring is giving up over 22 points a game on on defense there too. You still have the stalwarts there, obviously, with Warner. Sorry, I almost called him Bobby Wagner. I'm thinking of back in the Seahawks days. But last week, dude, I have to go back real quick to the stiff arm that Baker Mayfield put on Nick Bosa on that 4th and 7, just held him at bay, went out there and launched that thing. So,
yeah.
Todd Bowles a little too conservative. I think you go for 2 there again, but whatever. I'm digressing here. But the Niners, like I said, so banged up. They're starting to get this thing going there. Christian McCaffrey was back. Quietly had almost 100 yards last week. He sure
It
didn't
didn't
feel
seem
like that.
he had a huge impact. But then when you look back at the numbers, there's really good numbers there, And
Yeah.
Kittle, who's banged up too, also contributing last week as well. So
And Ricky Pearsall starting to get in this mix too. So
yeah, good for him.
they are missing Ayuk, but Pearsall's been a nice addition, recovering from his own injuries there too. So everything's still right in front of these Niners, what they need. It looked like early that the injuries might be a little too much, but quietly, dude, Brock Purdy is playing some really good football as well. So not having a ton of success through the air, but the Niners like to keep these games close and tight. So this is a huge game. Like I said, just a half game back of the Cardinals, who are on a bye. So if they get this win at home against the Seahawks, hello, back in first place, just like that.
All's well that ends well for
Yep.
a 49er fan, right? Casey, up next, there's some really big games this week. Again, another one of the bigger games of the whole weekend here. It's the Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. Bills at home are favored by 2.5 against the 2-time Super Bowl champion Chiefs on the road. Just the 5th time since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger that 2 teams with at least 8 wins played before Week 11, which is, I guess, this is Week 11. So I guess that including Week 11. But pretty impressive. Obviously, 17-2 record combined between these 2 teams.
Yeah, and I feel like this game is much more important to the Bills than it is to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
because even if the Chiefs lose this one, it's regular season, so it really doesn't matter. The Bills kind of need this for their confidence, just to say,
Yep.
hey, we can beat these damn Chiefs. But so far, dude, nobody's been able to beat these damn Chiefs. It doesn't feel like it, but they're still top 10 in passing, even Mahomes not having his typical year. But what have we seen out of this team? Whatever they need to do to get the win,
Yep.
that's what gets done. It's not over the top. We can play that ground control game and beat you that way. Oh, we need a defensive stop. No problem. We'll get that at the end. Oh, you got a chip shot field goal. Wrong. We're going to block
Block.
that shit, dude. And you saw when you saw some of the replays, they were working that edge leading up to that. And that's what good coaches do. They find that weakness and they attacked it. And that's exactly what they did. And even so, the Chiefs did enough to get this win. That is a good Broncos defense. But when the money's on the table, the Chiefs find a way to get it done. Oh, and they're activating Isaiah Pacheco too. So this team is going to be closer to full speed as it gets going. And
Yeah.
over about the last month of the season, I don't know there's been anybody targeted more than Travis Kelce, who had been having a quiet season up until this. D-Hop each week gets a little more involved into this offense, and I think that's actually going to open stuff up for the X-Man Xavier Worthy as they move forward. But this team, dude, I mean, they do everything well. I am a little worried about that left tackle. Wanye Morris is out. And
Yep.
once he went out, the Broncos started abusing that left tackle. So they're going to have to put some help over there, maybe chip with the tight end or at least have some attention there because that could be bad news for the Chiefs if Mahomes were to go down. But like I said, until they've gotten beat, they haven't. But this means more to the Bills, and we'll see if that energy comes out this way if the Chiefs treat it like a big game because you know the Bills will.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to downplay the game, but certainly would love to win and keep that unbeaten streak going. But let's talk Bills. They got to 8-2 beating Indy last week. That was their fifth win in a row, so they're feeling pretty good about themselves. Allen didn't have a great day, though. He tossed 2 picks in that game. He ran for 50 yards, though, and that 50 yards and a touchdown really does make a big, big difference. James Cook added another 80 yards and a rushing touchdown, too. Um, but as you mentioned earlier, Keon Coleman is going to be out for this game, so they lose their rookie stud that's been sort of ascending and coming onto the scene a little bit more lately. That's a shame. Dalton Kincaid also dealing with a knee injury. Mari Cooper, a wrist injury. Those guys have been limited in practice, so hopefully everything comes together so that they're ready to go as close to full bore. Obviously, no Coleman, but on offense. Buffalo is third in points at 29 points a game, so that's really good. Um, and on defense, so Buffalo ninth in points, 19 points against. Statistically, all the other stats aren't that impressive, interestingly. But when it comes to scoring points and stopping the other team from scoring, that's when the Buffalo Bills kind of excel. Bills have a 5-game lead over in the win column over anyone else in the rest of their division. So they don't need this win in terms of on paper, unless, of course, they want any shot at home field advantage in the playoffs, which is looking like it's going to default to the Chiefs if they lose this ball game. But if they win this, then not only do they make a statement against the Chiefs that we're on your level, we can beat you, you're not as good as you were, but that also puts them just 1 game back and with the tiebreaker for that possible number 1 seed. And I think there's a lot riding on it when you look at it that way, even
Yeah.
if, like I said, the Chiefs maybe want to downplay it. But there's no question, since the Chiefs have their number in the playoffs, this is regular season, right?
Yeah.
So it's not the playoffs, but it could be the difference between playing the AFC Championship game in Buffalo or in Kansas City, and that is a big difference. So let's hope that the Buffalo Bills come out to play and can put on a good show for us.
Yeah, hopefully it lives up to the billing because it looks like it is gonna be sweet.
Yep.
Dave, we got another sweet game right here. It's the Cincinnati
Sweet.
Bengals at our Los Angeles Chargers, and our Chargers are 1.5 favorites at home at SoFi.
Yeah.
React.
How about show me your lightning bolt? I'll tell you, these Chargers 6-3. They were 3-3 at the bye. 6-3. They've got their third straight win last week, beating the Titans. They've beaten the teams they should beat and haven't really beaten good teams, but that's another side story. I'll talk my Chargers up right now. Defense was dominant last week, sacking Levis 7 times, only giving up 17 points, and one of those with just less than a minute left in the ball game, where the game was already decided. On the season, defense is number one in points given up at 13.1 points a game for this Charger team, and they haven't given up more than 20 points in a single game this season. They could be only the second team since 1990 that would do that if they were able to hold the Bengals here to 20 points or less in this week's game. We'll see if they're able to do that. Sounds like a pretty tall order there, but they're fourth in sacks with 31 sacks on the season. Justin Herbert on the other side of the football has had his fourth straight impressive game passing the ball and also using his legs. Minimal numbers, though, 14 of 18, 164 and a touchdown, but a passer rating of 123.2, and he ran for a touchdown, too. He's used his legs to buy time and to move the chains a couple of times, and he scored. That was the play broke down. He scored anyways, right? Herbert has thrown the most completions by a quarterback in the first 5 seasons of his NFL career. So historically speaking, we're halfway through the season. He's going to crush that record. He has not thrown a pick since week 2. It's a
Wow.
franchise record. We've had some good quarterbacks with Rivers and Fouts. I'll throw in Humphreys there. All right. I'm not Humphrey. I was a little carried away.
Excuse me, Greg.
I'll tell you what, franchise record 7-game streak. Let's hope that continues because that's really, really smart football. Johnston had his best game, Quentin, that is, as a pro last week. 4 catches, 118 yards and a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins, 85 yards last week and 2 touchdowns with a 6.1 yard average. But we need to run the ball more consistently.
Yeah.
Down in, down out, so that we can really play the type of impose our will football that Harbaugh wants this team to be about. Chargers are also +9 in the turnover ratio, one of the best in the league at that, protecting the ball and getting it.
Yeah, maybe this is the game that the Chargers can get that run game going. The Bengals giving up almost 130 yards on the ground per game. But Dave, this will be a race to 21 points. If they can get to 21, they'll probably win. If you guys can get to 21, you guys will probably win. My advice to the Chargers secondary is try slowing down Jamar Chase just a little bit. Easier said than done, dude. That
Yeah.
dude is on a mission. He has been absolutely destroying the last few weeks, and that's good because T. Higgins, I'm not sure if he's going to be back for this one or not. So,
Yeah, it looks like he's trending towards probably playing.
ugh, that is bad news for the Chargers. And Gesicki's been a nice addition at the tight end position there,
Yeah.
too. I mentioned Khalil Herbert getting no run last week. That's because Chase Brown does not come off the field, man. This guy is a spark plug. He played probably 98% of the snaps on Thursday night. The Bengals get that little bye week playing on Thursday night. See if they
Yeah.
come out here. They
Thanks,
do.
NFL schedule makers.
Yeah, the Bengals, they've been in this stadium before. They were where they played the Rams in the Super Bowl, came up just a little bit short there. So it'll be interesting to see if Joe Shiesty can keep this going, man. He's 9 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. These Chargers have been playing solid defense. Can you get to him? You mentioned all those sacks on the Chargers, man. Mack and Bosa getting home quite a bit. Which team will be able to establish the run, if at all? And can Jamar Chase get it going? You mentioned if Higgins comes back, it's going to be tight. These Bengals need this game badly. Not that the Chargers don't, but
Yeah.
the Bengals started so slowly that this will be an important game. It's important for both teams in the
Yep.
AFC, jockeying for probably
Right.
a wild card spot. The winner is
And
going to feel good about themselves.
so a couple of points to make. You're right. Both teams absolutely need this game. The Chargers' next 6 games, at least the next 5
Ugh,
for sure, are an absolutely brutal stretch. So you
yeah,
have to find a way, even though they're 6-3, to win at least 2 or 3 of these games. Otherwise, the whole thing is going to fall apart. Is this defense under Jesse Minter doing it with smoke and mirrors? Maybe. They're starting 2 fifth-round rookies at corner. And they're going to go against Jamar Chase and probably Higgins against Burrow, who's thrown 9 touchdown passes in the last 2 weeks. It's going to, if they can put together a defensive performance like they've been doing,
yeah.
um, It will be an absolutely very, very impressive deal there for this Chargers team. But wow, it's a tall order again. Both teams need this.
Yeah, and you'll feel much better about that Chargers defense going forward if they are able to slow down this Cincinnati
Yeah,
offense.
and if I'm not expecting it to be under 20. I'm thinking this thing's going to get for both teams into the 20s, maybe even the 30s.
It's going to be a great game, bro.
Awesome. All right, moving on to Monday Night Football. Speaking of great games, Casey, it's the
This ain't one
battle
of
for
them.
Texas.
This
If you
ain't
like
one of
great
them.
football, look elsewhere. I'm sorry. It is the Houston Texans, and they are on the road against your Dallas Cowboys. Casey, the Texans are favored by 7.5 in this one.
Yeah, dude, and it might even be more than that. Texans still trying to figure out how they lost that game on Sunday night to the Lions, where they picked off Goff 5 freaking times,
How
dude.
does this happen? That they
Unbelievable.
lose?
I mean, Stroud had a couple costly picks in there too, but anytime you're a +3 in the turnover ratio, dude, you should be winning. Now this Texans team has been different on the road than they have been at home, but they're going to play the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to get Nico Collins back from this one. Joe Mixon has been running the ball like crazy, so
Yes.
that's all bad news for a Dallas Cowboys team that's 31st in the league, giving up almost 29 points a game, 26 in the league, giving up over 360 yards a game, giving up over 200 yards a game through the air, and giving up over 150 yards on the ground. But other than that, they're a pretty good defense. They're actually, I don't think the score was indicative of how well the defense played last week. The offense kind of fell apart. Zeke fumbling there inside the 5 yard line when they had a chance to go up in that game. And even though Jared doesn't think they need curtains in there, clearly the sunlight is a problem. Most stadiums are built north to south. For some reason, Jared World is east to west, and it definitely made a difference in that game. But luckily, there will be no sun shining because this is Monday Night Football. The Cowboys signed Will Greer to the squad. He
Yeah.
spent a couple years there before moving on. I don't think he's going to be ready to play in this game, but we still have to see what Trey Lance has. He came in and it was not good. Like I said, these guys combined for less than 100 yards passing last week,
Whew.
but at some point this team is going to have to stand up. Do they want to keep getting beat down every week? Probably going to happen, but they at least need to play well if that's going to happen. But with Dak gone the rest of the year, I don't see anywhere any bright spots on this team or anything good happening, especially with the current conditions. So this one looks to be all H Town, Indy Town, and we're looking towards a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I mean, once Dak goes out and you're sitting at 3-6, it's just again you
The
have to
offense is
start
atrocious.
right. You have to start wondering again what you've got in the kid quarterback in Trey Lance. Obviously, Cooper Rush rather has been a decent backup there, and Greer also was on that squad, and he's been sort of a journeyman now at this point. There's a reason
Yeah.
he's still in the NFL. But you need to find out what you traded for when you traded for Trey Lance, and this is the perfect time. This stretch of games here right now to really and certainly maybe after this week you say okay it's time.
Yeah, and plus it's time now. They might not think that yet, but it is. Let's see some of these young guys play. Let's find out what we have in Deuce Vaughn. Is he going to be able to play at this level or not? Let's
Yeah,
give him the opportunity. Hopefully Mingo
exactly.
starts getting involved in this game. Get some of these younger guys. I do like what I saw out of Awesome Richards at left tackle last week. When Guyton comes back, if he's ready, maybe we let him go to the right side. Terrence Steele has never recovered from that knee injury. Maybe he needs one more year. Maybe he's not going to be back. But at least there are some bright spots there with Smith and BB. I think Guyton's going to be fine. And like I said, I liked what I saw out of Awesome Richards. So it's time to start letting these young guys get reps. Overshown is obviously a star in the rise. And we
Yeah.
saw what Micah can do being back in there, but just not enough offensive weaponry. It is the NFL, so weird shit can happen, but I don't expect any weirdness to stoke me out on Monday night. So
All right, Casey, that is going to do it for this week's slate of games, week 11 in the NFL, folks. So many ways you can check out the Football Dudes. Trend Zone available for subscription: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Football Dudes. Like us on Instagram and Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. I'm back to Twitter or X at Football Dudes LA. And make sure you tag us across all social media platforms.
Or just go to footballdudes.com. It's all there for you. That is going to do it for this episode of Trend Zone. We're not the suits that talk football. We're the dudes that know football. For Casey, I'm Dave, and we are out of here.